What's going on, everyone? It's Foxxy here, bringing you yet another edition of the Graphical Evolution. And this time around, we're going to be taking a look at the F.E.A.R series. Now, I won't be including any DLC or the F.E.A.R files disc on the 360. This is just going to include the main 3 games. So as usual, let's start off with the first of the 3. You know, honestly, I don't have all that much to say about it. The gameplay was just alright to me, I did get a little bored after a while, and the graphics were, well, to be blunt, kinda shit, even for the time this game came out. However, of the 3 games, me and my friends all agree that the original is by far the best when regarding how scary the game is, even though in my opinion, and this is coming from a guy who's played dozens and dozens of horror/survival horror games since I was very, very little. If you're out there in the market for a truly amazing, scary, creepy, whatever horror game, I would not recommend the F.E.A.R series. There's just way better options out there. But I guess this sort of thing depends on your tolerance level to being afraid. Some people do genuinely get more scared than others, that's for sure. But then there's those out there that pretend to get scared and overreact on YouTube for attention. But let's not get into that. Moving on to the sequel, first things first, the graphics have noticeably improved. Everything from the attention to detail and textures to the cutscenes and character models looks so much better. The gameplay also improved significantly in pretty much every single way as well. I also enjoyed the story in F.E.A.R 2 the most. Yeah, it does get really bizarre towards the end, but I don't know, I felt that if it didn't have that bizarreness, it wouldn't have been a memorable story at all. There is one thing I felt wasn't as good in this game, and that is that the game is nowhere near as good when it comes to the whole scary department. I'm not really sure why either, but it didn't have that same creepy charm like the original did, and that's disappointing. So then that brings us to the third and final game in the series, at least by the time this video is being created. Like usual, the graphics have improved, most notably with the cutscenes. They look fantastic in my opinion. However, when it comes to the in-game graphics, the improvements don't seem to be as drastic compared to F.E.A.R 1 going into F.E.A.R 2. Either way, there's still an improvement, which I'd much rather have than no change at all, so hey, I can't really complain. Having said that, I've always felt that F.E.A.R 3 was the black sheep in the series. Sure, the controls in the game are wonderful, but the gameplay just wasn't the same. I don't know, it absolutely doesn't feel like a F.E.A.R game whatsoever, and I hate to make this sort of comparison, but the game feels way more like Call of Duty with a slightly creepy atmosphere more than anything else. Oh, and one more thing, F.E.A.R 3 is not scary at all. Like, it's that bad that anyone who is, I don't know, deathly afraid of horror games could play this and be completely fine. For the title of the game being F.E.A.R and all, you would expect at least some scariness, right? Well, unfortunately not with this installment. Although, to be honest, I still ended up enjoying this game a little anyway. And you know, I think part of the reason it wasn't scary may have something to do with the fact that the game was practically made to be played co-op. Scary games were always best played alone in the dark by yourself, so having a friend with you kind of makes you feel more powerful, which I think is something a horror game should never ever let you do. Another example of this is with Resident Evil 5 and 6. Also, to be completely fair, I want to point out that when I say the games had better graphics, they were still dated by the times the games came out. The best example is F.E.A.R 3, which was released in 2011. Heavy Rain, Uncharted 2, Metal Gear Solid 4, Crysis 2, and many others came out earlier or somewhere around the same time as F.E.A.R 3, and they all look, in my opinion at least, much better. Although I've said this a couple times now, you should never judge a game based on the graphics. Sure, obviously we all want our games to look phenomenal, there's no denying that. But graphics don't determine whether or not a game itself is any good, so just keep that in mind. And with that said, that brings this edition of Graphical Evolution to a close. I want to thank you all as always for watching, and I'll see you next time.